A few months ago, I found myself driving from my sister's place back to my apartment. It was a Tuesday, almost midnight. The highway was deserted, with only my headlights and the yellow lines reflecting under the car, providing any light. I was tired, yet alert. To stay awake, I kept the radio volume low. Roughly 40 miles from town, I noticed a smaller side road cutting through farm country. My GPS indicated it would save me about 10 minutes, so I decided to take it. The road itself was narrow and engulfed in darkness. Tall cornfields bordered both sides, and the asphalt looked wet from a recent rain. I slowed down to 50 miles per hour, wanting to avoid hitting any deer. 10 minutes later, my high beams illuminated a car parked on the shoulder. Its hazard lights blinked faintly red against the corn stalks. Standing beside the trunk was a woman in a light jacket, waving both arms vigorously. Her face was obscured by her blowing hair. I eased off the accelerator and slowly approached. When I was about 40 feet away, she stepped directly into the lane, waving even more intensely. It was at that moment my headlights caught the rear of her car at a better angle. I could then see a man crouched low behind the rear bumper, nearly hidden by the weeds. He wasn't changing a tire, he was watching the road. Every nerve in my body suddenly alerted me. My first thought was, why hide if you need assistance? I loosened my grip on the steering wheel, maintained my speed, and deliberately drifted towards the center line to pass wide. The woman took a quick step back towards the shoulder, still waving, but her gestures seemed less desperate now, almost like an act. My eyes briefly flicked back to the man. He had turned his head towards me, his left hand pressed against the trunk, and his shoes were pointed towards the lane, ready to move. I felt a cold sensation wash over my chest, pure instinct taking over. I shifted my right foot off the brake and back onto the gas pedal. The engine's hum grew louder. I kept my expression neutral, stared straight ahead, pretending I hadn't noticed anything unusual. As I drove past, I saw the man's shoulders tense. He looked ready to lunge, but something held him back. I was about 15 yards beyond them when I heard gravel spitting under my tires and the woman shouting something I couldn't make out. I checked the rearview mirror. Both of them had quickly gotten into their car. The hazard lights went off and their headlights came on suddenly. Their engine revved loudly. I floored the accelerator. My car isn't particularly fast, but on that flat road, it felt incredibly quick. The speedometer climbed past 70, then 80. Behind me, the other car swerved out, tires squealing. Its headlights bobbed in my mirror, gaining ground slowly. I glanced at my phone on the seat. No signal bars. The side road was far too remote. Calling 911 wasn't an option yet. I needed to reach the highway. I tried to stay calm and think. Ahead, the road curved left, then dipped under a railroad bridge. I turned off my headlights for just half a second, hoping the other driver might lose sight of me in the bend. It was a risky move. The darkness swallowed the lane, but I switched the lights back on just before the bridge wall. I hoped the sudden darkness would force them to slow down. In the mirror, their headlights wobbled, then steadied, still coming. They were maybe 8 car lengths back now. My heart hammered so hard I could almost taste metal. I scanned for any lit driveway or farmhouse, but saw only tall corn and the black sky. After the bridge, the road straightened for about a mile. I pressed the accelerator again. My engine roared. The distance between us stretched to maybe 10 lengths. Then I spotted a green highway sign approaching quickly. I-87, junction in 2 miles. Relief washed over me. If I could reach the ramp, traffic and lights might deter them. But I also noticed something else. A dirt lane on the right, clearly cut for farm equipment, with tall corn hiding its entrance. I blinked, realizing the lane was virtually invisible until you were right on top of it. If I slammed on the brakes and swerved in, the corn stalks might hide my taillights. I checked the mirror. The other car remained centered, anticipating a straight chase. I tapped the brake pedal just enough to flash the lights, but didn't slow down significantly, hoping to make them think I was panicking. Then, just 10 yards before the lane, I slammed the brakes hard and yanked the wheel right. Tires screamed. The front end bounced over the dirt edge. Corn leaves slapped against the windshield. Simultaneously, I turned off my lights and killed the engine. The car skidded to a stop between the rows, the motor ticking quietly. Air thick with diesel filled the cabin. I held my breath. Outside, the night was ink black. The only sounds were the ticking engine and the pulse thudding in my ears. I cautiously looked through the rear window. The road was empty. No headlights, no brake lights. They must have driven past before realizing I'd disappeared. I sunk lower in my seat. After a minute, I heard an engine roar in the distance, then it faded. I remained still for 5 long minutes, counting slowly. At last, I started the car again, but kept the lights off. I crept forward through the corn until I found another equipment path heading towards the distant highway lights. I drove at a walking pace until I reached a fence, located a gate, and carefully moved onto a paved service road. My cell bars appeared, showing a signal. I called 911, my voice shaking, and gave the dispatcher every detail: the car's make, model, and our location. She kept me talking until 2 sheriff's cruisers met me at a gas station off the highway. They took my statement while I sipped water and tried to stop trembling. An officer informed me that similar setups had been occurring along rural highways that month. The pattern involved a fake breakdown, a hidden accomplice, and a planned ambush. The perpetrators chose quiet roads, late hours, and lone drivers. Most victims lost wallets and phones. Some were assaulted. The pair I'd encountered matched descriptions from another case 2 nights prior. I might have been their next target. I finally arrived home at 3 a.m., still wired. I double-checked every lock, sat on the couch, and listened to the silence. The next day, detectives called to report that the same car had been detected by a toll camera heading south about an hour after my call. But the license plate was stolen. The investigation was ongoing. Now, I avoid back roads after dark, regardless of the time saved. If I see a stranded driver, I call for help, but I never stop. I still replay that moment when the woman stepped back and the man's eyes locked with mine. I wonder what would have happened if I had pulled over, left the engine running, and offered assistance. That question stays with me every time I drive at night, and it keeps me alert when the road ahead is empty and the only light comes from my own beams. I had been driving back to my apartment for nearly 3 hours after spending the weekend with my sister. It was about midnight, the sky was moonless, and the only lights visible ahead were the faded orange lamps appearing sporadically every few miles. My old sedan hummed steadily along at the speed limit, and the low murmur of a late-night talk show helped keep me awake. About 20 minutes past midnight, a pair of bright headlights filled my rearview mirror. They approached quickly, then lingered close, matching my speed. I checked my speedometer. I was still within the legal limit, so I maintained my lane position and waited for the car to pass. Instead, red and blue lights began flashing near the grille behind me. A wave of surprise washed over me. A traffic stop in the middle of nowhere? I signaled, slowed down, and pulled onto the wide shoulder. Gravel crunched under my tires as I came to a stop. I put the car in park, took a deep breath, turned off the radio, and waited. The vehicle, which looked like a cruiser, stopped behind me. Its headlights remained on, glaring into my mirrors, making it impossible to see much of the driver. I cracked my window and waited. A tall figure exited the car, walked slowly forward, and stopped just behind my driver's door. I noticed the uneven sound of his shoes on the gravel. One heavy step, then a lighter scrape, as if sliding his foot. "License and registration," the man said. His voice was low, almost casual. I tilted my head to look up at him through the small opening in the glass. He wore a dark jacket that might have been a uniform, but it had no patches, no name tag, no badge. His belt held a flashlight and what looked like pepper spray, but no gun, radio, or handcuffs. Something felt wrong. I kept my hands visible on the steering wheel and tried to keep my tone steady. "Officer," I asked, "may I ask why I was stopped?" He paused. "Routine check," he said. "No trouble if everything checks out." I knew real officers almost always state a reason. My heart started to pound. Still, I reached for my wallet slowly, making sure he could see, and handed my license through the gap. When he asked for registration, I pretended to fumble in the glove box, buying time, hoping to spot a real patrol car logo on his door. I could only see a plain dark sedan with a light bar stuck to the roof. He took my license, angled it towards my dashboard light, and squinted at it for an unusually long time. Then he asked a strange question. "Where exactly are you headed tonight?" I named my town, which was 2 hours east. He nodded as if adding it to a list. Next, he asked, "Does anyone else on the road know where you are?" That question elevated my fear to another level. I forced myself to sound calm. "Yes, my sister knows my route," I said. I even added, "She's tracking me on an app." It wasn't true, but I hoped he'd hesitate if he believed someone could track my location. The man grunted. Then he leaned lower, trying to see into the back seat. "Pop the trunk," he said. That made no sense. There was no probable cause, and I hadn't even been speeding. I asked, "Is there a problem with my taillights, sir?" He didn't answer. Instead, his fingers began tapping the roof of my car in a steady rhythm, as if thinking. I knew I had to get away, but flooring it while he stood beside the door felt risky, so I stalled. "I can't find the trunk release," I said, reaching towards the console. He stepped back slightly, shining his flashlight across the passenger seat. That gave me a narrow window. I quickly rolled the window up and shifted the car into drive. He slapped the glass with his palm, but I hit the gas. Gravel sprayed behind me as I shot forward onto the highway. My pulse pounded in my ears and the steering wheel shook under my white-knuckle grip. I glanced in the mirror. The fake cruiser's headlights wobbled, then steadied behind me. He was following, but hadn't activated the flashing lights. The distance between us shrunk. I pushed my car to 80, then 90. I knew the next exit had a small 24-hour gas station with cameras and possibly a night clerk. My phone lay on the passenger seat. I grabbed it, kept one hand on the wheel, and dialed 911. The operator answered, and I blurted out my location, speed, and the fact that someone pretending to be an officer was chasing me. She instructed me to keep driving toward the lit area, stay on the line, and not stop until real units arrived. The sedan behind me suddenly slowed. Its headlights fell back, flickered, then disappeared as it turned off onto a side road. I didn't relax until I saw the bright lights of the gas station ahead. I pulled in, parked near the glass front doors, and waited inside my locked car. Within minutes, 2 marked sheriff's vehicles arrived, sirens off, but light bars flashing. Real deputies took my statement. They examined the tire tracks and the shoulder where I'd been stopped. They informed me there had been 3 similar reports in the past month along that same stretch of highway. Always late at night, always involving a lone driver. The imposter never harmed anyone, but each target described the same unusual questions and the badgeless jacket. I sat on the curb, hands still shaking, while a deputy drove the route looking for the bogus cruiser. He returned an hour later with no luck. Before letting me leave, they gave me a case number and said state troopers would increase patrols. They thanked me for calling, instead of letting the man search my car. I finally got back on the road around 2:30 a.m. The rest of the trip felt 5 times longer. Every time headlights appeared behind me, my stomach twisted. But I made it home just after dawn. 2 days later, a detective phoned me. They'd found an abandoned sedan in a field off the same highway. Inside were a magnetic light bar, a dark jacket, and a clipboard with times and locations, likely a schedule of planned stops. No fingerprints matched anyone in their system, and the suspect was still out there. He might never be caught. For weeks, I replayed the scene in my mind. If I had opened the door or popped the trunk or gotten out, anything could have happened. I replaced my car's old dash camera with a new one and added a rear camera too. Now, whenever flashing lights appear behind me, I make sure I'm under a street lamp, near a camera, or within sight of other people before I even consider pulling over. I share this story whenever friends talk about road trips. Most of them laugh nervously and say it would never happen to them. I hope they're right. But when the highway is empty and the night is silent, it's easy for a predator to hide behind the illusion of authority. I learned that lesson the hard way, and I'll never forget it. It was around 11:30 p.m., and I was driving home from a long shift at the diner. My old Honda Civic was nearly out of gas, so I pulled into a small gas station just off Route 17. It was one of those rundown places with flickering fluorescent lights and a single pump that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the 90s. The air was chilly, and the only sounds were the faint hum of the lights and the occasional car zooming by on the highway. I was exhausted, my feet aching from standing all day, and all I wanted was to fill up and get home to my apartment. I swiped my card at the pump, the machine beeping as it approved the transaction. The nozzle clicked into place, and the smell of gasoline filled the air as I started filling the tank. I leaned against my car, scrolling through my phone to pass the time. The station was empty except for a beat-up pickup truck parked near the convenience store, but I didn't see anyone inside. The clerk was probably half asleep behind the counter. I didn't think much of it. Small towns like this were usually quiet at night. The pump clicked off and I hung the nozzle back up. I glanced around one last time before getting into my car. The door creaked as I opened it and I slid into the driver's seat, tossing my phone onto the passenger seat. I turned the key and the engine sputtered to life. Something felt off, but I couldn't place it. Maybe it was just the creepy vibe of the gas station, or the fact that I was bone tired. I shook it off and pulled onto the highway, the lights of the station fading in my rearview mirror. The road was dark, illuminated only by the occasional streetlight casting weak pools of light. I turned on the radio to keep myself awake, some late-night talk show about alien conspiracies droning in the background. I was about 10 miles out when I heard it, a faint sound like a soft exhale. I froze, my hands tightening on the steering wheel. I turned down the radio, my ears straining. Silence. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe the car's engine or the wind. But then it came again, louder this time. A slow, deliberate breath coming from inside the car. My heart started pounding. I glanced in the rearview mirror, but it was too dark to see anything in the back seat. Road stretched out in front of me, empty and endless, with no other cars in sight. I tried to stay calm, telling myself I was imagining things. Maybe it was my breathing echoing in my head from exhaustion. But then I heard it again, a low, raspy inhale, like someone trying to stay quiet. It was coming from right behind me. I slammed on the brakes, the car screeching to a stop in the middle of the road. My hands were shaking as I fumbled with the door handle, practically falling out of the car. I didn't even think. I just ran to the side of the road, my sneakers crunching on the gravel. I spun around, staring at the car, my breath coming in short gasps. The driver's door was still open, the interior light casting a dim glow over the seats. I couldn't see anyone, but I wasn't about to get closer. Then I heard it, the rustle of movement. The back door on the passenger side flew open and a figure bolted out. It was a man, tall and lanky, wearing a dark hoodie. He didn't look back, just sprinted across the road and into the dense woods lining the highway. The trees swallowed him up in seconds, the sound of snapping branches fading into the night. I stood there frozen, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. My phone was still in the car on the passenger seat. I didn't want to go back in, but I couldn't just stand there all night. The road was deserted, and I hadn't seen another car in miles. I took a shaky step forward, then another. My eyes locked on the car. The back seat looked empty now, but I wasn't taking any chances. I grabbed a stick from the side of the road. Not much of a weapon, but it was better than nothing. Holding it like a bat, I crept toward the car. The interior light was still on, and I could see my purse on the floor, my phone on the seat. I leaned in, my whole body tense, and checked the back seat. Nothing, just my gym bag and an old blanket. I grabbed my phone and backed away, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. The operator picked up, her voice calm and professional. I tried to explain what happened, my words tumbling out in a mess. "There's someone in my car," I said, my voice shaking. "He was in the back seat and he ran into the woods." She asked for my location, and I gave her the mile marker I'd passed a few minutes ago. She told me to stay where I was and that a patrol car was on its way. I stood by the road clutching my phone, my eyes darting between the car and the woods. Every rustle of leaves made me jump, my mind racing with what could have happened. How long had he been in there? Had he been at the gas station waiting for someone like me? The thought made my stomach churn. I kept imagining him creeping into the car while I was pumping gas, hiding in the shadows of the back seat. It felt like forever, but the police showed up about 20 minutes later. 2 officers, a man and a woman, got out of their cruiser and approached me. I told them everything. The gas station, the breathing, the man running into the woods. They searched my car, shining their flashlights into every corner. The woman officer checked the back seat and found something that made my blood run cold. A small pocket knife tucked under the blanket. It wasn't mine. "We'll take it for evidence," she said, bagging the knife. They asked if I'd seen the man's face, but I hadn't. It was too dark and it all happened so fast. The male officer walked towards the woods with his flashlight, but he didn't go far. "No way we're finding him in there tonight," he said. "Too dense and he's got a head start." They offered to follow me home, and I agreed. I wasn't about to drive alone after that. The whole way back, I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting to see someone in the back seat again. When I got to my apartment, I locked the door and shoved a chair under the handle. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the building, every shadow made me jump. The next day, I called the police station for an update. They hadn't found the guy, but they'd checked the gas station security footage. The clerk remembered seeing a man in a hoodie hanging around the lot that night, but the cameras didn't catch his face. They figured he'd slipped into my car while I was pumping gas, probably through the back door I'd left unlocked. I felt sick thinking about it. I'd been so careless, so focused on my phone that I didn't even notice. I haven't driven at night since. I got a new car, one with an alarm system, and I check the back seat every time I get in. Sometimes I still hear that breathing in my head, that slow, raspy sound. I don't know what he wanted, and I don't want to know. All I know is I got lucky that night. If I hadn't heard him, if I hadn't stopped the car, I might not be here to tell this story.